from a usability perspective, which is everything that's happening on your website, you need to have an About Us page. You need to have a web page on your site that talks about who you are. You need to make sure that you've got a Contact Us page. Now that just makes sense. On the web, Google wants to make sure that if something goes wrong, that those users can contact you. So you should have a clearly, easily findable Contact Us page with as much contact information as you can. I would include address, I would include phone number, I would include a form that people could submit. I think all of that information is really important. You'd also want to make sure that the privacy policy, disclaimer, and terms of use, all of those pages exist on your website. You see, when Google did the analysis for the Panda update, which is everything that happens on your website, they chose some of the very best websites on the internet, and they also chose some really bad ones. Then they went to these quality scorers, and they basically said, would you trust this card with this website with your credit card? Would you trust this website sending your child to it? And they got them to go through and rate all of these different websites. And what they ended up doing is, once they had all of these different reviewers rate the website, they then looked for correlations. And they said, between all of the websites that people trusted with the credit card details, what were some of the common factors? And that's where things like privacy policy, disclaimer, terms of use, sitemap, that's where these things come from, because they are exhibited on the sites that people trust most. So you want to make sure that you've got a good sitemap where someone can go and find all of the pages on your site. You want to make sure that your copyright is up to date. So rather than having down in the footer a thing that says copyright 2006 that makes it look like you haven't updated your website in however many years, you want to make sure that that's up to date. Small things, again, something like a fav icon, which is the little icon that appears in the title bar when you visit a website. That's one of these small factors that I was talking about, but it's still a positive factor. It's not going to be a deal breaker. In fact, most of these things, it's not that any specific one is going to be a deal breaker. But if you miss a lot of these, then it all adds up, and then you get a low quality score. So it's better to make sure that you just tick them all off. The next one down is unique and high quality content. You want to make sure that on your website you're not using duplicate content across multiple pages. And quality content, you want to make sure that it's not some robot spun low quality stuff. But again, all of this comes back to the fundamentals that I use just to lead into this presentation. You want to be creating and building yourself up as an authority. And if you're the authority in your space, you're not going to be using low quality content. So you don't even need to worry about it. Just make sure that you think about your users and giving them the best experience and giving them great content that helps to answer some of their questions. That's really what Google's looking for. The text to page ratio, that's just making sure that you don't have a whole lot of pages that Google calls thin pages, as in they don't have much content on them. So you want to make sure that your pages, now some people go, yeah, okay Dave, what's the magic number? How many words should I have on the page then? There's no hard and fast rule, and it's not like I'll say, okay, 300 words, and then you make every single page have 300 words. Google understands some pages are different to others, but as a general rule, if you can try and keep it above the 250 or 300 words, that's good. But that doesn't mean that some pages aren't going to have less than that. Google knows that. Just as a general rule, you don't want to have hundreds of pages on your website with hardly any content on them, because Google thinks you're trying to manipulate the rankings. And then we've got things like links to Google+, Facebook, and other social media like Twitter. Some links out like that. Again, these are some of the characteristics that were exhibited on good sites. Google now as well, it's looking for social engagement as well. So seeing things like comments on your site, or number of tweets, and Google Plus ones and things like that. They're all good quality score indicators. Now again, it's not that any one of these is going to be a deal breaker, but as a whole you want to make sure that you've got a good site.